This is Twisted Passages with award-winning author Marie Sutro. Now, let's take a deep dive into the dark world of psychological thrillers and meet the authors who created them.
Hello, and welcome to Twisted Passages. I'm your host, Marie Sutro, and today we have USA Today bestselling author Danielle Girard here to talk about her new release, PINY SWEAR.
Woo.
Welcome,
Thank you for
Danielle.
having me, Marie. I got the final finished copies. It's always so exciting.
Hardbacks are everything. I love it. Before we start in with this incredible book, can you start listeners off with an overview of what the story is about?
Absolutely. PINY SWEAR is about a woman named Lexi McNeil, and she's in her late 30s, and she is happily married to an older man and helped raise his two boys. And she's at that age now where she had thought she didn't want any kids, but she's now is the time. If she wants them, she has to have them. And she decides she does want a baby of her own. And her husband supports her, although he's already got two kids and doesn't want to have any more. So she pursues a sperm donor and in vitro fertilization, and she's diagnosed with something called idiopathic infertility. She just cannot get pregnant. There's no good medical reason. At the same time, her best friend from high school returns into her life, fleeing an abusive marriage, and the two girls lost touch after the third in their trio died in an accident in their senior year of high school. So it's been about 16 years since the girls have seen each other, but Lexi takes Mara in, and they become super close again, and Mara actually offers to be Lexi's surrogate. And it seems like a perfect setup until 4 days before the baby's due and Mara disappears. So Lexi has to figure out where she's gone, what happened in the intervening 16 years, and even what happened their senior year of high school.
And it's such a chilling setup because any kind of theft that you could imagine in the world, the Hope Diamond, whatever it was, nothing would be as precious to Lexi or as valuable as that baby.
Yeah. And I think the thing that's interesting, I mean, obviously, we read kidnap stories, and I think when the premise came to me, I thought, God, who's going to say if it's worse to lose a baby that you've never met or one that's, 5 or 7 or whatever, but it's something I'd never read about or thought about. And it really did strike me because Lexi doesn't even have the experience of pregnancy, right? She never got to sort of feel that baby or hold that baby. And now potentially the babies could be gone forever.
And Lexi really is in this traumatic state because she has lost pregnancies before.
Yeah.
And she's already dealing with that trauma.
Yeah.
So Lexi's ability to see situations and her emotional responses to them and even her take on them may be a little in question when she's dealing with trauma on top of a new trauma that's unfolding.
Right. And we don't make our best decisions when we're panicked. She's not been a sort of strong, independent, motivated woman. Her parents were sort of rough on her, and a lot of her life has sort of been, she's been shuffled along by other people like her husband. And that's not a bad thing. She's been very comfortable. And I think this is the first time in her life that she has to figure something out completely on her own. And the stakes are very high. And she makes some failed attempts early on.
Speaking of early on, one of the things that absolutely opened me up for empathy before I even read the first line of chapter 1 was the epigraph. Could you talk a little bit about that? Because it was so moving, and I remember just sitting and staring at it for a moment and just kind of marinating in what that meant to me and what it meant to me being open to whatever story you were going to tell me, Danielle.
So the epigraph is, of course, I feel too much. I am a universe of exploding stars. And I read that. I think actually, I can't remember if my daughter sent it to me. My daughter and I sort of share quotes. But when I first read it, I got those chills because I do think Lexi is somebody who feels too much. My publisher said, you can use it as long as you can get permission from the authors. It took me some time to find the woman, Sarah Anja, and she was incredibly gracious to let me use it. But I do think Lexi, and actually she's told as a child that she feels that she's too emotional. Her emotions are too big, too much for her parents. And I think I was a bit that way too. My mother is more stoic than I am. I have always been somebody who sort of feels and shows all the emotions. And so I empathize with Lexi that when somebody tells you you're too much or that your emotions are too much, it's sort of hard to navigate them, especially as a young person. It struck me. I do really love that quote.
You show us many versions of motherhood. And part of it is that you've given us a dual timeline. You've given us flashbacks to the teenage years, and then you're giving us this incredibly propulsive story that's unfolding. Will she find her baby, and will she find her surrogate? With the different versions of motherhood, whether it's Lexi's mother, we have ideas about Mara's mother, different characters. You gave us so many examples of both bad motherhood and good motherhood, and the emergence of Lexi becoming a mother through all of this. You're a mom. How did you make this so multidimensional? Because it was so powerful, because there is no definition for motherhood, right?
No, I mean, I think that's one of the questions I wanted to ask. And it's interesting when we say like bad mothers. I mean, I think in every way, all of these circumstances, each of the girls has a mother, and parents for that matter, who do the best they can and also fail. And now that my children are grown and they are 26 and 24, I look back and think, oh wow, of course, I'm super grateful my kids turned out wonderfully, but you do look back and think, oh, I could have done that better, or I might have done that differently, or I gave my kid a hang up I didn't expect to. And I feel the same about my own mother. I mean, she also inadvertently gave me hang ups she didn't mean to. And I think it's an incredibly hard thing to do to mother. And Lexi is a mother already, right? She mothers her stepsons, but of course, mothering what she wants to mother now is a very different situation. And she didn't come into those boys' lives until they were, 9 and 7 and 9, around 8 and 10, somewhere in there. So it's very different, of course, to start from the perspective from where she's going to start, hopefully, with this baby. But I think I love the sort of nuance of all of these questions about, what does it mean to be a mother? And it's just all these things, women everybody wants to put you in a little basket. You're a biological mother, you're a stepmother, you're a surrogate, and yet so many of them overlap. And so many of us are so many more things. We're mother, we're auntie, we're sister, we're different types of mothers. And I kind of hate the way that Lexi feels such shame that she can't carry her own baby, right? Instead of sort of celebrating the fact that she's been a wonderful stepmother, or that she's going to have an opportunity to be a mother, she's still fighting off this sort of shame about what her body won't do. So there's just so many layers of it. And I think that was what was really fun to explore.
And what I loved about those layers is that exploration of a woman's experience in this world, because there is that sense of, you need to be the core of everything. And somehow, as you're the core and you're the nexus for the family and you're all of these things, you need to be perfect. Like we said, what is a bad mother versus maybe a mother who didn't have exposure to something that their child was dealing with, and they were doing their best to navigate it. And yes, it turned out horrible in terms of how it impacted their child.
Right.
But that really wasn't their intention. They just didn't have the tools, maybe, or the bandwidth, or whatever it was.
Right.
And like you said, for Lexi to take this on, that she has to be this biological mother for some reason, because she'll come up short somehow if she doesn't. I think it's emblematic of these situations we still deal with in our society.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, I actually, it's funny because I actually have that even myself. My dad was an OBGYN, and I'm the firstborn, and this was the first grandbaby on both sides. My dad said, in no uncertain terms, you will not have a C-section, because he was also the chair of the medical board. And there's all these weird things that they do at hospitals. They don't want anybody to have C-sections. It's not, whatever. So I was 8 days late. My daughter was 8 days late, and I was beside myself to have this baby, but he wasn't going to induce because he did not want me to have a C-section. Of course, I labored, and then the baby's heart rate dropped and my cervix never dilated. It turns out I have a faulty cervix. So I would have, been the baby of the mother back in the 1800s. So they woke me up and said, we have to do a C-section and I was like, no way. We are not doing a C-section. I was told There'll be no C-section. So I was so distraught at the idea that I was going to fail some very random test, right? And that my dad was somehow going to be disappointed in me. And here I was like a 29-year-old, but it just, and again, it was just this, I was trying to be the rule follower. And I think it's a very normal response. And I've actually spoken to other women who've had C-sections and felt the same way, right? Because of course the preparations and the classes you take and all that stuff is about doing it naturally and doing it without intervention. And yet, the truth of the matter is that wasn't an option, right? I would have died or my daughter would have died. But it took me a while to get over the fact that I had not been able to do it the way I wanted to do it. And it seems in hindsight now, 25 years in hindsight, to be the most ridiculous thing. But this is what I think we do to each other. We do to each other and we do to ourselves is we judge, so harshly based on things that are really beyond our control. Lexi's situation is beyond her control. That situation was beyond my control, right? And what matters is the healthy baby. Hello.
Yes. And thank God you said into their 20s, full functioning adults.
Yes, amazing.
And,
yes, despite all the missteps. They are fully formed, fabulous adults. It's amazing.
That is absolutely wonderful. But again, your point, right? Yeah. Even going into a C-section, you don't know how that could turn out. And your focus should be on, hey, let's just do this and try to stay as positive as possible.
Right.
Yet you're carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders over little things. And yeah, it is not easy, is it?
Right. And I guarantee my dad did not care one bit. When it came to that, he was like, are you kidding me? Let's go meet that girl. But I had just dragged that baggage along it was a long time. It was years before I sort of was like, okay, really, that's beyond your control and you need to let it go. I'm one of those, like, I could rewrite history for a decade.
Well, I am so glad that you have moved beyond it because it wasn't your burden to bear, and it wasn't.
It wasn't. All's well that ends well.
Yes. Now, we talked a little bit about Mara, and there are a lot of viewpoints as Lexi goes out to find Mara. She starts talking to more and more people, but we start to wonder, is Lexi's view of Mara a little too convenient? And does that reflect things about Lexi? And that maybe as much as these ladies are BFFs, maybe some people do come first, even though they don't realize they're doing that.
Well, I think, it's interesting. I think we look at the relationships we have with people and we sort of love them, accept them, a lot of it based on whatever happened in that history, wherever we were at that moment when we met them and needed them. And these three girls really need each other. They're very much each other's support systems. And none of them has a super happy, thriving home life. None of them has a sibling super close to them that they could depend on. Lexi doesn't have any siblings. So it really is about the three of them. And so I think she carries that. She emerges from that time and thinks largely she survived it because of Mara and Kate. And so I think when Mara shows up again, there's that love, that basis, that foundation of, this is my family, this is my sister, and the trust kind of comes without really too much thought into sort of who is this person now, because of course they were 18 when they last saw each other, and it's a long time between now and then, and she doesn't really think about it. I think she just takes her in because it feels like it's family.
And what was so great was the point of view that you gave us in terms of how you told us the story of Mara and Lexi when they were young. Instead of letting it be Mara or Lexi's, it's this girl who's passed away, who maybe sees both girls in a very different way than they see themselves.
That was fun. And so the first version of this book, the first version of PINY SWEAR, and this book's had a few iterations, but the first version of PINY SWEAR was only Lexi's point of view. There was no past scenes in it. And I knew something was missing. And when my agent and I started to work on it together, she said, it feels like it needs some snapshot of the past. But I didn't want to do Mara's point of view because I felt like if we get Mara's point of view, then we know more about Mara, and Mara is the mystery largely. And so it was actually my agent's idea to use Kate, because Kate no longer exists. She's gone at 18, not even 18. She's just not turned 18 yet. So so it was I thought it was a great idea. And then we used a device, which was fun, of a notebook. So the girls, this is sort of before cell phones are really prevalent, certainly with young people. So they have this notebook that they've labeled with whatever this year's science course is, that they pass around on certain days, and they write in it, and they write all the things you wrote in high school, who your crush is, and what's going on in each classroom, and who the jerks are, and all those kind of fun things, and a little tiny bit about what's going on in their home lives. Although, like teenagers, they don't admit to the things that are sort of the most painful, because nobody wants to look at those too closely. So that was really fun. Once we figured out what it would be, it was really fun to do.
Going back and looking at the core of that friendship, it really got me as the reader to think about when we define friendship in our lives. And so many of us, we use the term ubiquitously, friends for people who maybe are acquaintances,
Yeah.
and maybe people who are found family.
Yeah.
It's this huge spectrum.
Yeah.
I started looking at it, and again, Lexi's going through trauma. She's going through all these things. But sometimes I wonder, for as much as we intend to be good friends, are we really? Like, where is the line between selfless in a friendship and selfish in a friendship, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think it's, and also, you could have found family that you then, for one reason or another, lose, right? They become just, strangers again. I think it's a good question about every relationship we have is, where do we put ourselves aside, and where do we sort of, put that person at the center of something? And I think it can change. It can change overnight, and I think it kind of depends on a lot of it. I think does depend on the timing of a friendship. If they come into your life at a time when, whether you need something that they can provide, or you have bandwidth that they need, so much of it is sort of a sliding doors kind of situation. And I feel that way as an adult too. Friendships now, even people I was really close to 5 years ago who I'm not as close to, or people or acquaintances 5 years ago who are now sort of like really in the inner circle.
There's so much you grappled with in this book, and I just have to say, it's so darn good, because it continually pokes and prods at you, but there's this fantastic mystery for Lexi to solve. You're giving it to us through all these characters, all these ways, all these devices. And the whole time you're just like, I can't explain it. It opened me up to a lot of things: friendship, loyalty, courage, all of those elements in our lives, and making me think, well, gee, where have I shown loyalty? And who was I loyal to? Was I really being loyal to my friend here, or was there some self-interest in it? So it's one of those books, Danielle. So thank you.
Thank you.
Those books.
I love that. Well, I hope, the idea is, I love reading a book that makes you think about it afterwards. And I'm hoping that was my goal with Pinky Swear. And it's a very different type of book for me. I wrote 16 books that are basically detective stories. There's always a woman in law enforcement at the center of them. And this is the first departure for me. It was also, motivated by my own personal experience of a very difficult betrayal, in my marriage and a subsequent divorce. So it felt like it was time to focus on every woman type of person, right? Not a woman in an extraordinary job, but a woman pushed to extraordinary action by circumstance.
I love that, because you give us so many examples of strong women. And like you said, Lexi's kind of been in the shadow of a lot of people in her life. And here is where she's just constantly being scraped across that wedding stone, because she has to find her strength, and she's finding it in ways that the person we met on page 1, we would never expect this from her.
Yeah.
Knowing your backstory and who you are, it is no wonder that you don't need someone to have a badge or a gun or this or that, because you are a very strong woman, and you know damn well how to write strong women.
Thank you. Well, I also think, and every strong woman also is the sort of like little girl who wants to be reassured and held. And I think nobody is strong all the time. I mean, certainly not me all the time, or even maybe most of the time. But I do think that there are the situations where you realize, like, there's no choice. There's no choice but to get up and move on. You just got to do it. So Lexi finds her power. And I think I was probably a strong woman before my divorce, but I think I found a different kind of strength that I didn't anticipate through it. And I think that sort of shows up on the page with Lexi too, that she doesn't know that she has the strength she needs until she finds it to go and find Mara.
One really big question. I could keep you here all day if you'd let me, but I've already had you for hours in the book, so I can't ask for much more. But one big question that was burning and burning the whole time. You did give us this backstory with the girls. You gave us this incredible mystery, and oh my goodness, the finale of this book. I just need to say for a moment without spoiling, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh my goodness.
Yeah, that one scene is really, I know. That one's been in my brain for a long time, so.
Oh, Danielle, your brain. Oh my God. That was one of the most intense final scenes to any book I've ever read in my life. So hats off to you.
Thank you, yeah.
But one question that was burning, and it might be kind of a different kind of question. I don't know if anyone's asked you this one yet.
Okay.
Going back to their high school time, you talked about the notebook and the dynamics. And even as grown women, we have our dynamics with our friends.
For sure.
The cover of the book has the traditional interlocking pinky swear. Danielle, I have to ask you, you don't even have to specify, you don't even have to tell me if this is something that happens in your adult life or if it happened in the teen years. Was there ever a special pinky swear gesture in your time, like with one of your gal pals, where it was beyond a pinky lock? Like, were there, kiss the thumb away? Was it like elbow hits? I mean, was there anything?
I feel like when we were really young, we used to be like blood sisters. Like you would like poke your finger, and like it probably ended in the 80s when, blood became scary. But no, I wasn't a pinky swear person. I love the image of it. I love the words. And so when I was trying to think of a title. I'm terrible at titles also. I think sometimes it's harder to write a title than the whole book. But when I was trying to think about sort of the way in which we would know how close these girls were, that came to me. And I don't have any memories. I mean, I'm sure we did it, of course, because I think it was a thing when I was growing up in the late 70s and 80s. But yeah, no, I didn't have a pinky swear person. I do remember like drawing blood though, and thinking that was a good idea, which doesn't seem like a good idea now.
Well, you know what? That is far more tough chick on point. I think to your brand, Danielle.
Well, I think we weren't drawing too much blood. We were, I think, using like a thumbtack, but it was more painful than a pinky swear for sure.
Yeah. And it's like where the guys were around, either to this day, fist bumping or whatever. Yeah. Hey, you got blood. That's way more serious.
There you go. Well, yes, I think we took ourselves quite seriously. We also did things like the Ouija board. I mean, we really thought we were very, very badass, when we were like, 10. So, but of course, all, my own friendships are, show up in the book too, of course. I mean, I think not in totality, and thankfully, not my home life, but little bits of that always slip into the books. I think people always want to, I feel like people always say like, well, who are you in the book? And it isn't quite like that, right? But there are, of course, the way, a writer observes the world is from her own, inside me, and also by watching people around me. And so there's a little bit of my own world in there too.
Abandoning the little, the little blood packs is probably a good thing.
Yes.
But again, it does show that there was a little girl there who was willing to go to the dark places. And you took us to some places in this book that literally left me on the floor, especially that final conflict scene. Yeah. Oh my God. So wherever it came from, wherever it is, I am so very grateful, Danielle. Again, the book is Pinky Swear, and it's absolutely phenomenal.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Marie. This was so fun.
It was. And thank you so much for joining me, Danielle. And thank you all for joining us on this episode of Twisted Passages. We hope to see you next time.